So wicked problems, they're around all the time. They're really big issues and don't have one answer. You may not have 20 answers. It may just be a lot of little things coming together. And as you know, Tony and I love to talk wicked problems, mainly because we want to get it out there for you guys to talk about it. Because part of the way that we come up with solutions is by talking about all this stuff. So we've been talking probably for 2 years now about picking up an episode on transportation. We decided today's the day. And I want you to think about this because transportation affects everything in our lives. Everything that gets shipped to you, your food, your clothing, your household goods. It affects where you go to work, how you get there, how you take your kids places, how you see your parents, how you go on vacation. Transportation is huge.
Living green or sustainably is about more than saving on your electric bill and doing your part to protect natural resources. It is about a safer and healthier life for you and your family without sacrificing style, quality, or budget. This is a movement to provide all of us with clean air to breathe and water to drink, safe, healthy food to eat, and places to live, and energy to run the places where we live, learn, work, and play. Join your hosts, Marla Esser-Close, the Green Home Coach, and Tony Pratte of the Sound Room to learn how everyday green homes work for you, your family, and your community.
Hey y'all, it's Marla, the Green Home Coach, and today's Wicked Problem episode with sometimes co-host Tony. I don't know what else to call you. But Tony we are here in studio live at Shock City Studios in St. Louis, Missouri. I love getting to come back here and spend time with Tony and Sam, our audio technician, who's in the other room now because we're in a new studio.
The voice above.
The voice above. And, today we want to talk about transportation and this whole wicked problems concept of transportation and why it's such a big deal and how it's changing and how it's affecting us. And I think just to get here to St. Louis required transportation and logistics.
Yep.
It required fuel. It required an interstate highway. It required all of these things. It required rules and regulations so that we didn't run into the semis going next to us. And all of these things are part of our transportation system, but we've grown up with them, so we kind of take it for granted. And now that our transportation system is starting to change for various reasons, we're starting to kind of see some impact from that and see where things might be going. There's just a lot to it, a lot to transportation.
Well, I think it really changed with COVID.
I so agree.
That was the tipping point. That was the paradigm shift, so to speak. So we've always thought about transportation as what's one of the biggest reasons for transportation?
Commuting, getting to work.
Commuting, getting to work, or school.
Right. Which is work for kids.
Right. Exactly. Well, what happened during COVID? Remote work, remote school, right? So you stop seeing people on the roads, you stop seeing people travel. I mean, you name the industry tied to travel, and they still haven't recovered.
Don't you remember driving out at what used to be rush hour time during COVID, and it was like a Sunday morning?
Oh, yeah.
Nobody around. It was really freaky feeling.
For me, now you have to understand, because we were in construction, we never shut down.
We didn't.
And, I went to the office every day during COVID.
And I'm the other extreme because I have a very well outfitted home office and can do pretty much everything via Zoom or online. So for me, it was the other extreme. Nothing really changed because I was already remote.
Right. But it was just freaky because I could get anywhere in the city, 15, 20 minutes, never had to worry.
Right.
Didn't see accidents on the highway. I didn't see any kind of traffic. And I still remember when it started coming back and I'm like, what's this? I haven't seen an accident in a year and a half.
So we actually had, at least in Oklahoma City, we actually had more accidents at one point during COVID because there were so few people on the road. People were going out and drag racing and getting into big accidents.
Yeah,
we're a big street racing city, so not surprising.
They have a lot of that going on downtown St. Louis right now. Illegally.
Crazy. Yeah.
Just,
yeah, unintended consequences.
Yep.
Our favorite keywords.
Well, they fit so well for what we do. They fit so well.
It does. So then the next thing we started seeing, I saw it some before COVID, but I really noticed it after COVID, was electric cars popping up everywhere. Even in Oklahoma City, where we're a fossil fuel state, we're seeing so many electric cars. And I don't know if I just started noticing it when everybody got back on the road or what.
It's potential. The main thing is you see more and more being built.
Yes.
And once again, this is great. However, the infrastructure is not there yet for everybody.
Well, it's coming quick though.
It is coming. I see more and more, chargers popping up, things like that.
And there's money in the Inflation Reduction Act for chargers as well and infrastructure.
The problem becomes if we're going to hit these, 2035 EV versus ICE goals. When I say ICE, internal combustion engine.
Thank you.
We need more copper. We need more lithium.
Yes.
We need more, you name the metal.
So electric vehicles rely mainly on lithium ion batteries.
And copper for all the electrical
connections.
They said the amount of copper is either going to double or triple.
Can't we just turn all the pennies in and get all the copper we need?
I wish.
Somebody said it costs 2 cents to make a penny.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Why are we still making pennies?
Tradition.
Any rate, another topic. Sorry, didn't mean to go down that rabbit hole. There was something you said that now it just totally left my brain. I'm having lithium ion batteries. So one of the things we've been watching is there's Toyota, and I'm sure other companies have been working on a solid state battery, which would improve the situation somewhat. But there's all these things that we don't mine most of these precious metals that we need to make this technology. We don't mine most of it here in the United States.
Right. And this is something that really bothers me because of where we have to mine it.
Yeah.
And once again, unintended consequences. It's great we're doing this.
Right.
But if we don't embrace mining here.
There are responsible ways to.
Well, and here's where I'm going with this, especially since we just had the ESG conversation. And the S and the G do kind of play into the mining question.
Okay.
Because what is better for the globe, the environment, and society overall? Us mining it here, where we have really strict environmental regulations, societal rules about child labor, workplace safety, or get it from the countries we mine it in now in war-torn Africa, South America, China, where these are countries that don't have the same types of regulations, nor the care to have the same types of regulations.
But it's cheaper.
It is cheaper, correct.
And we look the other way, all for the dollar. And transportation is wrapped up in this issue of how much we will look the other way because it's cheaper. And sometimes we got to look at the bigger picture here.
Right. Well, and that ties into the whole, yes, it's cheaper, but it's also the only alternative right now.
True.
Environmental groups block, new mine developments all the time. You see judges strike down the ability to do it. Once again, they're basically helping to support oppressive regimes with some of these decisions. And I wonder if it's because they just don't realize it.
Maybe. It's challenging to keep up with everything going on an international front and to know where everything comes from. And one thing that has been talked about in the kind of sustainability world for a while is much better chain of custody reporting and labeling, so that when you go buy an electric vehicle, for instance, not only do you know where the car itself was manufactured, but you know where the major components came from. Because you don't right now. All you know is it was manufactured in Kentucky.
Right.
And it may have been manufactured and assembled in Kentucky, but all of the major components may have come from 19 different countries.
Right. You don't realize that maybe the precious metals for your battery and the charging system came from China.
Right. So transparency on what we're actually buying would be a great first step, not just for the transportation industry, honestly, for everything, because we as consumers have no way of knowing. You get a better label on your food. Now, not where it's from, by the way, but there's been some work. I think Walmart was working on this, but There was some work being done on a more unified sustainability label that not only listed the materials that were in a product, but where they came from.
Well, I think Starbucks really is one of the first major corporations that actually did list their chain of custody.
Yeah.
So you knew exactly what farms were sustainably sourcing the coffee and all that other stuff. So they kind of set the benchmark.
Successful real estate and home professionals know that education and information are key to your expertise. Buyers and sellers want to know more. How can you help your clients connect what's really important to them with your homes? And who doesn't want a home that looks great, feels great, and performs well? Most of our clients want a home that is healthier, safer, and more comfortable, even if they don't know how to ask for it. In addition to these essential benefits, learn other benefits most people want from their homes and what home features and processes help deliver these benefits. Learn about the basics of green homes and what benefits are available from certified green or energy efficient homes and the features and processes used to build these homes. Gain the knowledge about how green homes and features contribute to health and wellness to add even more value to your services. Wrap up by relating these benefits to the value your clients will gain from living healthier and more comfortably in these homes. Learning how to talk about your homes in terms of what is most important to your home buyers is the secret to finding the right buyers for your homes. Sign up today using the link below for my How to Sell the Value of Green Homes and Features workshop.
Well, when my daughter went to college, now this was 12 years ago, 11 years ago, over 10 years ago. And she went to college. We thought, let's go see if we can stock your dorm room with nothing made in China. We couldn't do it. Unless we wanted to spend outrageous amounts of money and go everything like completely homemade or crafted assembled.
Yeah, I remember reading an article years ago about a company that they were trying to furnish a house with everything made in America. They were able to do it, but
it was hard.
It was hard. They had to do a lot of work.
Hard.
And once again, that was probably 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, it's hard. And we are bringing more manufacturing back to the United States, and manufacturing is changing, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole we could run down since my son's in additive manufacturing. But we just don't know. And the more transparent we can be about these things, the more we can tell people, where does your gasoline come from?
Yeah.
Is it coming from, where does your wheat come from? It used to maybe come from Ukraine if you lived in Europe.
California is a good example of that when you talk about gas. So the oil, they're not buying it for the most part from local manufacturers and, domestic production. They're buying it from Russia. I'm pretty sure a lot of people would not be happy about that, knowing what's going on.
And the fuel economy, just like the electricity economy, is very complicated. And, for us, you just go put gas in your car and it's there.
Mm-hmm.
You pump, you complain about how much it costs, you wash the windshield, and you finish up and you leave. You don't know where that gasoline came from.
Right. I mean,
you don't know what refinery it came from. You don't know the safety record of that refinery. You don't know anything. You just know that you put gas in your car.
Well, you don't even know where the oil came from.
Correct.
Was it tar sands out of Canada?
Right.
Was it from Saudi Arabia in the desert? Was it, fracking up in North Dakota? You don't know.
So if you're driving an electric vehicle, you don't know where the lithium came from. You don't know where the copper came from.
You don't know where the electricity to charge it came from.
That is very true. Unless you have solar panels on your house, and you then might know. And that was part of my goal. Is I didn't want to get an electric vehicle until I could have enough solar power to charge it on my own.
And make sure if
Which
you
do now. I just need to get some housing issues figured out.
You probably still need battery storage.
You do.
Because a lot of people don't realize, and this is something to think about with transportation, especially if you have an electric vehicle. If your electricity goes out, your solar panels stop.
Right.
Until you can keep a certain amount of days worth of electricity on the premises.
And
hence the lines go out, you are out.
Yeah, because most of our solar systems, residential solar systems, are grid tied.
Yep.
So yes, if you do not have a battery system for your solar system, It's a lot of systems in one sentence. Sorry. If you do not have batteries, you're
done.
kind of SOL when the grid goes down.
Yeah, I would say a week. I think you need a minimum of a week. That's me.
I don't know. I would have to see what some of the people.
The only reason I say that is because I've sat there when we've lost power for 5 to 7 days.
Okay.
It was right after Ameren purchased Union Electric. And it was a few years of cutting the tree trimming budget because
Yes.
a bunch of MBAs said, hey, we can shave, 3% off the bottom line by doing this. Whereas when it was UE, it was engineers making those decisions. So they understood the importance. We had those bad storms that came around, and then hundreds of thousands of people were without power for a week.
That's another series of questions. So a lot of people are going, okay, so I get an electric car, I charge it up with electricity, I'm better. And it is better because you're at least not emitting the pollution from the car itself. But if you don't know where your power is generated from, then it may not be quite as good as you think. I had to laugh. Scott, my husband, saw a meme or something that electric car towing a trailer, the generator, and several containers of diesel recharge the car. I think that's one way to drive an electric vehicle out into the boonies.
Oh, that's funny. But there's some truth to that. I mean,
Yes, that's
if you're getting electricity off of a power plant that is still burning oil, is your electricity better than getting it from, something that's powered off of natural gas?
You have cut down. I mean, at least now the pollution from the car is gone. So you're just getting the pollution and the effects from the fossil fuel power plant. So it is a little bit better, but it's also driving up electricity generation.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, anyway, so this is why energy, transportation, housing, buildings, they all have to work together because we're all dealing with the same resources.
Well, we haven't even touched on what's the impact to the grid infrastructure. When
We only have the studio for 17
I know.
minutes.
But you know what I'm saying.
Okay, that'll be next time.
Right now, if we had as many cars as they're talking about in 10 years, well, we better start running lines.
Okay, so individual transportation is one part of this. The other big part of this that is not being discussed as much right now, interestingly enough, is public transportation. And most of the Midwest in the Southeast has
None.
almost non-existent public transportation. And St. Louis has the little metro, but it doesn't run out too terrible. Well, it goes to the airport now, doesn't it?
The Metrolink? Yeah, it does. It expands a little bit. It connects, other side of Illinois. So you can get into the Metro East.
And it connects with the big bus transfer station.
Yes, really the bi-state buses, you have those. But the reality is, less than 10% use it?
Well, and you can't, they're main arteries on public transportation, but they don't get in closer. So you still have a long way to walk, or you have to call an Uber or have some.
Or you have to drive there.
Right.
So I remember taking the Metrolink to football games.
Yep.
So we would have
drive to the parking lot.
Drive to the parking lot.
Yeah.
Like miles.
Yep.
And then you hop on there so you didn't have to deal with parking.
Yeah. Oh no, when we lived in Eureka, which is our suburb in St. Louis, for those of you that aren't familiar with St. Louis, and when we would come in to go to games and stuff, we would drive into one of the inner suburbs, park in the parking lot, and hop on the Metrolink.
Yeah.
That it was, like you said, parking.
But it's still required driving somewhere.
And then parking's part of the whole transportation issue as well. How much land do we want to use up for parking? Would we rather have walk-friendly cities and villages and areas that don't have to have precious land and resources used for parking, but we still need a place to put the cars, especially if we don't have enough public transportation? So you can see that this gets to be very complex very quickly.
Yeah, we know downtown St. Louis has plenty of parking. Don't even get me started.
Okay, we won't. And there's just so many elements to this whole transportation issue. And it's not just what we see. It's not just the interstates. It's not just our roads. Then we also want areas that are more walkable. There's a group that I read some of their stuff called Strong Towns that helps cities reinvent their streetscapes so that they're smarter, more walkable, slower. So that's safer for pedestrians. And how do we balance this need for walkability with this need to get around? In Oklahoma City, we've got horrible urban sprawl because we have more land. I think we're one of the top 10 biggest cities in the area in the United States, and we have fairly low population, under 1.5 million in the metro. So we're all spread out. We're all over the place. And transportation affects your zoning and your building. And how can you keep up? This was one of the big things that I've been reading about a lot, is that we keep building new before we can maintain what we've already built.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look at St. Louis.
And transportation's definitely, look at our roads.
Mm-hmm. Not horrible.
We build new roads before we can take care of the old roads in many cases.
Well, they don't, part of the planning process doesn't take into consideration the maintenance.
Well, and do you think part of that is because there's two different budgets included in
Yeah.
here? Part of this, it seems so much easier to get a capital budget approved than it does an operating expense budget.
That's exactly what it is.
And people can put their money into a capital expenditure because that's the glamorous, sexy, fun
That's
stuff.
creating jobs. It's,
Yeah.
whatever they can sell.
Yeah. But maintenance, not so much. But
Yeah.
that's so important. And you and I have talked so many times on various episodes about how important maintenance is, because it's what keeps something in service longer. And the longer we keep something in service, then we don't have to toss it and make something new.
Yeah, I know I was cursing maintenance probably about 6 weeks ago when I came off of 270 on the 70 and right into a pothole at 70 miles an hour.
Ouch.
Immediate blowout.
Oh.
Yeah. Fun. All
We need
because
pothole insurance.
all because the road wasn't maintained.
Well, and for those of you that live in extremes, like St. Louis,
Mhm.
we have extremes here.
And that is part of it.
Oklahoma City has extremes. I mean, we go from 0 to 110 usually in the space of 365 days. And that's really hard on roads, asphalt,
Yeah,
in
it's that
particular.
expansion and cracking.
Yeah.
It
and especially
expands, it
asphalt.
contracts, it just
So finding better road materials may be one option that becomes a part of that down the road. Who knows? There's a lot of talk about, you look at how much trucking we do right now to move goods to various parts. And can we use rail more to get things to central points and then use just trucks for the smaller distances? There's so many questions.
that's a great one, because years ago, I think it was Warren Buffett joke that every jogging path and bike path that had been, converted from a rail line needs to be ripped out,
Reconverted back.
because the actual engines for the trains are some of the most economical and environmentally friendly modes of transportation.
I'm not surprised.
When you think about how much tonnage of goods they carry per liter of fuel they use,
Yeah.
it's like ridiculous.
And that's something that I don't know that we've done. I don't hear it talked about much, like how much fuel it costs to move, say, a ton of goods. And how do you compare that with rail versus air versus over the road? Or even by water.
I think a lot of times the semi transportation is just because there is a shortage on the rail. The rail is booked.
I sit behind many of the trains, so I can attest to that.
So at some point you have to bring it all in. Now, when you're going across the country in 3-4 days by a truck, yeah, it's great you can do it, but it really doesn't have a whole lot of efficiency. Not like a train.
Not like a train. So how do companies start to make these decisions? How does the government know where to put the infrastructure money? And again, there's infrastructure in numerous different legislation packages, and then we have to get it out there. It actually has to be built and it has to be put into service.
I think part of it starts with you actually have to have a master plan that doesn't take into consideration congressional preference. Let's face it, when it comes to this stuff, 595 stakeholders, the big ones, and they're all fighting for their own share of the dollars. At some point, it's got to no longer be about the me and about the we. What's best for us, not you.
Yeah. It's an amazingly complex issue.
It really is.
And in some respects, I think transportation is even more complex than housing and buildings. At least now that I've said all this about it, feels that way.
No, I would agree with that. I mean, you just have too many people involved. I mean, when you go to build a house, well, okay, you buy a tract of land. Once you get the infrastructure in, you've got the permits, you build a house.
Easier said than done.
Easier said than done, sure. But the steps are pretty simple.
Pretty
But
straightforward, yeah.
plan a highway.
Yeah.
How many pockets do you got to line?
So I help with this construction camp in Oklahoma City. And so we've been setting up the field trips and all the activities for the camp that's going to happen in June. And so one of the field trips that we're taking the campers to is the Oklahoma Department of Transportation Materials Testing Lab.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, really interesting. I was geeking out. Oh my gosh. Like they test
That's
asphalt.
the engineer in you, though.
I know it is, but they're testing the asphalt and they're testing the concrete and what makes it break and how compact does different types of soil have to be. And it's a lot of things to consider. And, we just see it as, hey, the road's under construction. It's an inconvenience, but years of research and testing and engineering have gone into widening or repaving those roads. So when you're getting upset with cursing them, remember that. And as crazy and as, I hate to say broken, but as convoluted as our transportation systems are, we still have one of the best transportation systems in the world.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah. And, the car has been king for a long time and has been our primary mode of transportation. I talk with a lot of these younger folks that are 30 and younger, and some of them don't even have a driver's license because they wanted to use other kinds of transportation. So there may be a shift coming in just from a change in our different generations.
Well, some of the things that we are seeing now, ride sharing,
Yes,
that has helped.
this helped.
I mean, a lot of people, especially if they live in urban areas, don't necessarily need to have a car anymore because it's very simple to pull out your phone, open an app,
And
click a button. I've got a ride in 5 minutes.
I mean, Oklahoma City is a very car-centric city, but I can get pretty much anywhere I need to go if I just call a ride share.
I mean, St. Louis is the same way.
On my app. I app a ride share.
And that is the ease of availability is changing behaviors. This younger generation that's in high school, college right now, I don't know of a parent that worries about driving under the influence with an underage person who's been drinking.
Because so many of them don't drive.
Well, that and it's so easy for them to get an Uber. They all just automatically book Ubers or Lyfts or whatever, your transportation company of choice is.
So transportation is changing slowly. I think the advent of electric vehicles has probably been the biggest change that I see, at least visibly.
I think that and ride sharing.
Rideshare has been a big piece as well. I definitely agree with that. That has changed how we look at things because it's so much easier to get a rideshare than it is to get a cab.
No, when we travel, that's all we do.
Yeah.
We drive to the city, to the hotel,
And park the car.
park the car, and then ride share
Yeah.
the entire time.
Yeah, we do too. We do too. So we'd love to hear your comments on what you think is changing about transportation, what you're doing about maybe how your transportation life is changing. And it's impacting all kinds of parts of our life. I think even a lot of parts that we don't really even think about, like supply chain, where our stuff comes from. And I'm a huge advocate of trying to stay as local as I can whenever I can. I kind of bounce back and forth between two cities, so I have two sets of local. But that's okay. I like St. Louis and I like Oklahoma City. So
There you go.
So there. I got people in both. So there. But this whole transportation issue is not going away. It is here to stay. We will continue to need to get around no matter what.
True.
But we would love to hear your thoughts, your comments, and any ideas for future Wicked Problems podcasts that Tony and I can do. And as always, we thank you so much for spending some of your precious time with us as we come together to talk wicked problems on the Everyday Green Home podcast. Signing out.
Well, there's really nothing more to say.
He said it all. Y'all have a great green day.
That wraps this episode of the Everyday Green Home podcast. Get the show notes with all the resources mentioned in this episode. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. Want more? Join the Love Your Everyday Green Home private Facebook group for more resources and behind-the-scenes insights. And remember that living a little better and greener is easier than you think.